For decades, Linda Ronstadt was untouchable, a voice that transcended genres and a name that carried nothing but respect. She never lashed out, never took to the tabloids. But now, in a stunning turn, the icon who once ruled arenas is finally speaking out. And it's not a song she's singing, it's a reckoning. The names she's about to reveal? Not strangers or distant rivals, but legends. Men who shared her stage, her studio, even her trust. What could push one of music's most graceful stars to finally break her silence? It all started with a single name on a set list. The silence breaks. Picture this, Linda in a bustling green room preparing for another show, when something catches her eye, the performance list. It wasn't the names of the Eagles or her own that set her off. It was his. Just seeing that name was enough. No words, no outburst, just a cold, silent exit. She stormed off, leaving everyone stunned, wondering what had just happened. For years, the mystery lingered. Fans, reporters, and even her closest peers were left in the dark. Linda never spoke of it, never gave any details. But now, at 78, she's finally shedding light on the truth, and it's more shocking than anyone could have imagined. What made her walk out so abruptly? Who was the man on that list that pushed her to the edge? The answers are more explosive than you think. Before we reveal even more shocking stories, where in the world are you watching from? Comment your country below, and stay tuned. The most shocking name on Linda Ronstadt's list is still coming. For years, Linda Ronstadt was the epitome of grace and poise. No public feuds, no shocking scandals, just a steady stream of perfectly composed interviews and a reputation for being one of the most respected figures in music. Her silence on personal matters was legendary, leaving fans and the media alike to wonder about the untold stories behind her career. But now, at 78, that silence is broken. In an unexpected moment of raw honesty, Linda opens up about the 7 musicians she never forgave. It's a revelation that shatters the carefully crafted image she's maintained for decades, pulling back the curtain on the tension and conflicts that no one ever expected from the Queen of Cool. They didn't just clash with her, they shook her confidence, questioned her talent, and revealed the ugliest truths hiding behind the glamour of rock and roll. And the list? It'll catch you off guard. These weren't petty feuds or forgotten arguments. These were deep betrayals, power struggles, and silent acts of payback that left scars across the music scene. The real shock? Some of the names she now resents were once the people she trusted most. Betrayals on stage and backstage. At the top of her list, a drummer turned frontman who didn't just rise in the industry, he used her rise to launch his own. And when he made it, he never looked back. The name might surprise you. Don Henley. Before the world knew the Eagles, Henley was just a face in Linda Ronstadt's band, a quiet figure in the background, holding the rhythm while she owned the spotlight. In the early 70s, Linda was the one filling concert halls, the voice everyone was talking about. Henley? He was gaining exposure simply by being near her. But once his new band caught fire, the dynamic flipped. The gratitude faded. The soft-spoken drummer transformed into a dominant force with a growing ego to match. As the Eagles soared, so did his self-importance, and the woman who once gave him his break was left behind in the shadows. The band that once opened for Linda now strutted down Sunset Boulevard, acting like they owned the place. Don Henley, especially, started to carry himself like the king of the canyon, brushing off the woman who had helped him rise to fame. The real turning point came in 1975, backstage at the Universal Amphitheatre, when Henley made a remark that still stings. He mocked Linda's musical style, arrogantly suggesting she should stick to covering other people's songs and leave the songwriting to the real artists. The comment wasn't just a jab, it was a slap in the face to everything Linda had built with years of hard work, raw talent, and passion. That was it for Linda. She didn't hesitate. In an instant, she pulled the plug, revoking Henley's tour credentials right then and there. No apologies, no second chances. Do you think Don Henley was out of line for saying Linda Ronstadt wasn't a real artist? Yes or no? Comment, yes, totally disrespectful, or no, he had a point, and tell us why you think so. Rumors began to swirl throughout the music world. Don Henley's unchecked arrogance had reached its peak. Roadies and industry insiders whispered about his tantrums, fueled by his egotistical decisions, and the cruel insults he'd throw when no one was watching. But for Linda, the worst part wasn't just the betrayal, it was the total lack of respect. In private, she would later describe him as a climber who lost his soul in the pursuit of fame. But Henley wasn't the only one who crossed a line. Linda's next confrontation didn't stay behind closed doors. It unfolded in front of a live audience, complete with a drunk frontman, a hijacked microphone, and a moment so humiliating she could never erase it from her mind. It was 1968, the night Jim Morrison went too far. That summer's idealism was long gone, but the madness of rock and roll was in full swing. The Doors were on fire, tearing through stages with raw power, while Linda Ronstadt clawed her way forward in a world run by men. One evening, at an exclusive after-party near the Whiskey A Go-Go, where legends and outcasts mingled freely, no one saw the disaster coming. Jim Morrison, already several drinks deep and shirt casually undone, spotted Linda in the crowd. In a surge of bravado, he yanked her up onto the makeshift stage without a word. There was nothing spontaneous or charming about it, just reckless impulse. Then, standing before his stunned bandmates and onlookers, he reached in for a kiss. Linda pulled back on instinct, her dignity intact but her trust shattered. The chaos didn't end there. As Morrison lunged toward Linda, he lost his footing, stumbling into her mic stand and nearly sending the entire setup crashing to the ground. The room went silent, the crowd unsure whether to laugh or be horrified. That wild moment, thankfully never caught on camera, quickly became a backstage legend, whispered about in dark corners and shared over late-night radio for years. But Morrison never offered an apology. In fact, he made it worse. A few months later, during a radio interview, he mocked Linda, calling her sweet but spineless, belittling her as harmless and forgettable. Linda didn't fire back in public, she never did, but in the safety of her inner circle she had no hesitation. She described Morrison as a brilliant disaster, a man who destroyed everything he touched. To Linda, Jim Morrison wasn't just a reckless performer. He embodied the toxic masculinity that tried to control every inch of the music industry. While his chaotic behavior left emotional scars, the next betrayal cut deeper, and it wasn't delivered with drunken gestures or egotistical outbursts. This time it came when Linda thought she was standing with friends, supporting a cause she truly believed in, a movement she had risked everything to champion. Then one of her supposed allies turned on her. The protest turned personal. It was 1976. The culprit, Neil Young. At a benefit concert for farm workers that year, some of rock's biggest stars gathered to lend their voices for a cause they all supported. Among them were Linda Ronstadt and Neil Young, both known not just for their musical talents but their strong convictions. On the surface, they seemed like perfect allies, united for a shared mission. But as soon as the spotlight was on them, everything shifted. The tension backstage had been building for hours, and it finally erupted when Neil Young began dismissing Linda's artistic suggestions. He shut down her choices for the set, blocked her from performing certain songs, and even went so far as to criticize her sound, calling it too commercial. But the real sting came after the show when he reportedly told the press that Linda wasn't built for protest. The message was unmistakable. Linda wasn't authentic enough for the cause. She left the venue in tears. It wasn't just a personal insult. It was a betrayal from someone she had admired, someone she thought shared her values. To be dismissed as shallow by a fellow activist hurt more than any public critique ever could. That night changed everything for Linda. No matter how meaningful the cause, she never shared a stage with Neil Young again. Behind closed doors, she referred to him as loud in message, cruel in execution. To her, his activism rang hollow when mixed with that kind of arrogance. But if that moment left her shaken, the next betrayal would wound her on a deeper level, artistically. This time, the cruelty wasn't backstage or in the press. It came in the middle of a studio session in front of a full room of musicians, with just one cold, cutting remark. This time it was Frank Zappa. Their collaboration in 1974 was supposed to be electric. Frank Zappa, avant-garde, unpredictable, and known for his experimental rock genius, and Linda Ronstadt, the unstoppable, genre-defying vocalist on the rise. Together they seemed poised to push musical boundaries, But in reality, the partnership crumbled within hours. It started with genuine excitement. Linda was eager to record one of Zappa's tracks, but as soon as they entered the studio, the mood soured. Zappa dismissed her creative suggestions with a mocking smirk, criticizing her sound as too sanitized. He accused her of watering down his raw art into something commercial, fit for car commercials. The tension hit its peak during a live rehearsal when Zappa suddenly stopped the band. The room fell silent. In front of everyone, he sneered, "This is what happens when you hand real music to a pop singer." The silence was deafening. Linda didn't fight back. She didn't shout. Instead, she quietly packed up her things, humiliated and hurt, and walked out. She never returned to Zappa's studio, and the collaboration ended there. Publicly, she said nothing about it, but those who were close to her recall her words clearly. She respected Zappa's brilliance, but described him as brutal, a man she could never trust again. Creative clashes with difficult artists were one thing, but the next betrayal went much deeper. This time, the person who turned on Linda wasn't an eccentric genius or a reckless frontman. It was someone she once considered family, a fellow trailblazer who had helped shape the very same counterculture they both believed in. The betrayal? It came from David Crosby, a member of the Laurel Canyon elite. In the golden days of Laurel Canyon, Linda and Crosby had been close. Their musical chemistry was undeniable, and they shared not just the stage, but a deep bond. Crosby's harmonies and Linda's vocals were part of a revolution in music. But by 1978, that harmony had fractured. During a vocal session for a collaborative track, Linda requested a simple key change to better suit her voice. Crosby, dismissing her request with a sharp, "You should learn to adapt," refused. What seemed like a minor disagreement quickly escalated. Harsh words were exchanged and their arguments spilled into the press, becoming one of the most talked about clashes in Laurel Canyon history. But the betrayal didn't end there. In a scathing public move, Crosby went to Rolling Stone and called Linda manufactured, implying that she was more product than genuine talent. For Linda, who had built her entire career on raw ability and authentic artistry, the words cut deep. Yet, true to her nature, she didn't respond in interviews or make any public statements. Her silence, however, was anything but passive. Behind the scenes, she made a deliberate, silent stand. She banned Crosby's name from being spoken around her band and inner circle. Studio musicians were told never to mention him. His music was swiftly removed from her tour playlists. It was as if he no longer existed in her world. To Linda, Crosby had not only betrayed a friendship, but had also turned his back on the very ideals that had once united them in the heart of Laurel Canyon. Privately, Linda referred to Crosby as a cautionary tale. He was proof that even the most brilliant musicians could be consumed by ego, drugs, and fame. His actions left a lasting scar on her, and yet, this wouldn't be the most crushing betrayal she'd endure. The next incident would leave her stunned, the sting of it still evident in the way she spoke of it years later. Enter Elvis Costello. In 1979, Linda was at the peak of her career, fresh off a string of hit albums, and a headliner at a major festival in Cleveland. The excitement was palpable. But amidst the energy, Costello, a rising punk icon, decided to make a name for himself with a public insult that would shock everyone. Brash and unfiltered, Costello was known for his punk rock edge and intellectual rebellion, and that night he aimed his sharp tongue squarely at Linda. In front of a group of reporters, he sneered and dismissed her performance as background music for brunch. It wasn't just a rude comment. It was a calculated act of public humiliation. The words stung, not just because of their cruelty, but because of the timing. Costello, a new face in the music scene, had gone out of his way to belittle a woman who had spent years carving out her place in the industry. Linda never responded publicly to the insult, but behind closed doors, her inner circle knew that the wound ran deep. It wasn't just a matter of taste. It was a personal attack that challenged her very essence as an artist. The insult from Elvis Costello spread like wildfire through the music scene, and when Linda finally had the chance to confront him backstage, she had hoped for some clarity, perhaps even an apology. What she received, however, was far from what she expected. Costello, reportedly drunk and overflowing with arrogance, looked her dead in the eye and threw another cold, cutting remark before walking away. without so much as a hint of remorse. Linda never looked back after that. To her, Costello wasn't just a rude young artist. He symbolized a new breed of musician. Clever, yes, but heartless. Critical without a hint of compassion, rebellious but only for the sake of ego. In his defiance, she saw no soul, only a relentless, bitter desire to tear down rather than build up. His cruelty made her question whether the punk ethos he championed had any real purpose, or if it was just about tearing down everything in its path. The final heartbreak, a lost collaboration with Paul Simon. But even that pain, as sharp as it was, paled in comparison to the final heartbreak on Linda's list. The last betrayal wasn't from a wild rocker or an abrasive newcomer. It came from someone who should have been her musical kindred spirit. Someone whose voice had the power to complement hers perfectly. Someone who, on paper, seemed destined to create magic with her. This was a person whose collaboration had all the potential to be iconic, but behind the scenes things were far from harmonious. What should have been an exhilarating partnership instead devolved into a silent, simmering war, the name that completes this list of heartbreaks, Paul Simon. The contrast between their voices should have been effortless, two forces of nature colliding in a beautiful blend of harmony. Instead, Linda found herself at odds with Simon's controlling nature. Their musical visions clashed in the studio, and what should have been a creative exchange became an ongoing battle for dominance. Simon's cold dismissal of her artistry, his reluctance to collaborate on equal footing, left Linda questioning everything she thought she knew about trust in music. In 1982, it was the kind of collaboration everyone dreamed of. Paul Simon, one of the most respected songwriters of his generation, and Linda Ronstadt, a powerhouse known for her versatile and unmatched vocal range. Fans and industry insiders couldn't contain their excitement when Linda agreed to duet with him for his upcoming album. It sounded like a dream partnership, but what should have been magic quickly soured into a slow-burning nightmare. From the moment they hit the studio, things felt wrong. Simon, who was known for his perfectionism, began nitpicking Linda's every move. She recalls him interrupting takes to correct phrasing that didn't need fixing. He rewrote lyrics without consulting her and offered vocal advice that seemed more like condescension than collaboration. Linda, according to those close to her, described the experience as feeling like she was being scolded by a strict principal. Every note was scrutinized, every suggestion felt dismissive. The chemistry that should have been there was stifled by ego, and the creative spark fizzled out quickly. The song they worked on was ultimately shelved, unfinished, and never heard by the public. But for Linda, the damage went beyond one unrecorded track. It was the way she felt, belittled, treated as though her vast legacy and powerful voice meant little compared to Simon's control. After that, Linda made an unspoken promise to herself. Never again would she step into a studio with Paul Simon. And with that final betrayal, Linda Ronstadt's silence on the darker side of her career finally began to unravel. 7 musicians, 7 scars, each hidden for decades behind the elegance of her public persona until now. Because behind every harmony she sings, there's a story that few have ever heard, until someone dares to speak it. Why did she stay silent for so long? Linda Ronstadt's final confession, the real reason she stayed single for life. Linda Ronstadt is a legendary American singer whose remarkable career has spanned over 4 decades, crossing genres from rock, country and pop to opera and traditional Mexican music. She rose to fame in the 1970s with hits like You're No Good, Blue Bayou and When Will I Be Loved, becoming one of the most versatile and best-selling female artists of her time. With 11 Grammy Awards, countless platinum albums and a powerful voice that defined an era, Ronstadt broke barriers not just in music, but also as a Latina artist in a male-dominated industry. Despite retiring from singing due to Parkinson's disease, her legacy continues to inspire generations of artists around the world. At 78, Linda Ronstadt still commands the spotlight. Her golden voice, armful of Grammys, and ageless elegance all refuse to fade. Yet even after dating some of the most sought-after partners in show business, she never once walked down the aisle. Why? In a rare moment of candor, Ronstadt finally unveils the fiercely personal promise that kept her single for life. A revelation packed with conviction that has left devoted fans reeling and stirred a fresh wave of Hollywood gossip. Born on July 15, 1946, in sun-soaked Tucson, Linda Ronstadt arrived with music already woven into her DNA. Guided by a guitar-loving father and the vivid folk rhythms of her Mexican-American roots, she grew up straddling two cultures, each chord and harmony shaping the powerhouse who would later captivate the world and become a staple of celebrity interviews. The cross-cultural soundtrack of Ronstadt's childhood set the stage for everything that followed. In high school, she linked up with fellow folk dreamer Bob Kimmel, whose restless ambition pointed straight toward Los Angeles. One semester into the University of Arizona, her own heartbeat started keeping time with him. She packed up, headed west, and alongside Kimmel and guitarist Kenny Edwards, built the Stone Ponies from scratch. Their rise came fast. In 1967, Different Drums soared up the charts, its jangly defiance wrapped around Ronstadt's unmistakable voice. Overnight, the world heard not just a promising singer, but the arrival of a new force. She didn't merely join the boys' club of rock, she knocked down its front door, headlining arenas and carving her name into a male-dominated genre. Crowds crowned her the Queen of Rock, the First Lady of the Stage, titles earned by sheer resolve and show-stopping talent. Long before Hollywood scandals could dim anyone's spotlight, Linda Ronstadt had already rewritten the rules, proving that a woman's place in rock was wherever she decided to stand. Industry gatekeepers tried to squeeze Ronstadt into a neat little box, but she refused to fit, answering every slight with twice the effort and an arena-shaking performance. Yet the thunder of applause couldn't muffle the hush that followed each show. In rare candor, she speaks of hotel rooms that felt colder than any stage light, proof that success can be a lonely traveling companion. Sound off below on a scale from 1 total empowerment to 9, she missed out big time. How do you feel about Linda Ronstadt staying single for life? Comment just the number 1, 2, 3, up to 9, and let the debate begin. Love stories came and went like chart-topping singles. Songwriter J.D. Souther offered harmonies. California's Governor Jerry Brown traded policy briefings for backstage passes. Their shared magazine covers turned her private moments into public fodder, but vows were never part of the arrangement. Ronstadt chose autonomy over aisle walks, stepping onto every gala carpet with the unflinching poise of a woman perfectly content in her own headline, an unexpected flourish in the evolving tale of red carpet fashion. Romance never stayed simple for Linda Ronstadt. In the 80s, she startled fans by dating a young stand-up named Jim Carrey, then spent years engaged to Star Wars mastermind George Lucas. Marriage still eluded her. Instead, Ronstadt chose motherhood on her own terms, adopting Mary Clementine and later Carlos, proof that her heart favored family over formal vows. Reflecting on love, she once signed, "He's really nice, but he's not musically inspired." The real challenge, she explained, came when lightning struck. And then you meet someone who's so musically inspired that it takes your breath away. But he's such a jerk, such a maniac, that you can't get along with him. And then there's the problem of finding someone who can put up with you. Those words reveal a lifelong quest for a partner who could match her creative pulse without dimming her spirit. Disenchanted with Los Angeles, its stale air, status games, and empty glitz, Ronstadt decamped to San Francisco, then finally returned to Tucson to raise her children amid familiar desert skies. That decision silenced the usual Hollywood gossip, but amplified the one truth that mattered. Linda Ronstadt would always write the melody of her life her own way. Ronstadt eventually split her time between fog-kissed San Francisco and sun-baked Tucson, fine-tuning a life tempo that suited her better than any tour schedule. Yet in the hush between cities, a single note changed everything. In 2013, doctors diagnosed her with Parkinson's disease, a cruel turn that stole the very instrument that made her a legend. Suddenly, the voice that once soared across arenas struggled with the simplest phrase. For any performer, it would be devastating. For Linda Ronstadt, whose every breath had been a song, it was seismic. Still, she refused to let the silence define her. With the same candor that once captivated celebrity interviews, she spoke publicly about the tremors and stiffness, shining a spotlight on a condition too often hidden in the wings. When asked if she missed singing each day, she quietly confirmed the ache and then shifted focus to advocacy, determination glinting in her eyes. Even without a stage, Ronstadt found new ways to resonate, proving that while illness may hush a voice, it cannot mute a spirit tuned to perseverance. These days the stage is silent, yet melodies still race through Linda Ronstadt's mind. "I can sing in my brain," she tells reporters. In that private concert hall, she either selects a favorite tune or endures whatever her brain blares. Sometimes the hokiest holiday jingles on loop. Life on tour once felt like rereading the same battered chapter. Bus, hotel, soundcheck, spotlight, repeat. Along the way, magazine covers paired her with governors, comedians, and chart-topping songwriters. Still, after the curtain fell, she preferred an empty ring finger. Whispers swirled about why such a luminous star remained single, even hinting it must be personal orientation. In candid celebrity interviews, Ronstadt dismissed the rumors with a shrug. She had always hoped to meet a partner who matched her passion and stayed kind. She simply never found the perfect duet. So she chose independence over compromise, letting the world speculate while she kept writing her own score. For Linda Ronstadt, true chemistry went far beyond fame or fortune. It had to make her heart sing. Loyalty, warmth, and genuine care topped her checklist, but she also confessed that quick wit was irresistible. Anyone who could spark a laugh instantly rose to the front of the line. Music mattered too. She longed for a partner who not only appreciated melody, but understood it at a soul-deep level. "Gentleman, you prefer? Oh, I don't know. Smart and honest, I suppose." That off-the-cuff remark captured her standards in a single breath. Yet even the fellow musicians she dated never quite measured up to a lifelong duet. In a candid Washington Post conversation, she admitted she had no talent for marriage at all. Insisting compromise simply wasn't her style. Pressed on why countless high-profile romances never ended at the altar, Ronstadt shrugged. "I didn't need to get married. No aisle, no vows, no regrets." Back in 1974, she told Crawdaddy magazine exactly why relationships in show business rarely last. Relationships are almost impossible. First of all, new opportunities are flashing before your eyes every 3 seconds. And secondly, you're not around him long enough, and also the people you come into contact with are other musicians, and they're all really competitive. Her words laid bare the relentless carousel of attention that shadows every star. In the swirl of Hollywood scandals, stage lights, and competitive egos, Linda Ronstadt discovered that staying single gave her the freedom she prized most: autonomy to conduct her life in perfect pitch, without ever missing a beat. Ronstadt long ago decided that romances in show business fade faster than a chart-topping single. She points to the endless search for the perfect mix of kindness, creativity, and compatibility, confessing, "You meet one guy, he's really nice, but he's not musically inspired, and then you meet someone else who's so musically inspired that it just takes your breath away, but he's such a jerk, such a maniac that you can't get along with him." As she wryly adds, "And then there's the problem of finding someone who can put up with you." That frank wisdom, often delivered in her most revealing celebrity interviews, captures the tug-of-war she's fought for decades: the need to protect her freedom versus the wish to share life with an equal. Through dizzying fame, grueling tours, and a relentless battle with Parkinson's disease, Ronstadt refused to compromise her principles. The result? A legacy gilded with Grammys, capped by the 2013 National Medal of Arts, and burnished by an unbreakable spirit that still outshines every spotlight. Elizabeth Montgomery. Elizabeth Montgomery, beloved as Samantha Stevens on Bewitched, crafted her own private world of elegance away from Hollywood's spotlight. Her Agura Hills retreat, nestled quietly on half an acre overlooking Malibu Lake and the Santa Monica Mountains, was designed as a secluded sanctuary rather than a flashy estate for red carpet fashion and parties. The luxurious 4-bedroom home featured a spacious great room decorated with antiques, pillars, and chandeliers, exuding charm and sophistication. Montgomery cherished quiet solitude, evident in the master suite's meditation balcony, Moroccan-style lounge with fireplace, and serene spa grotto with its own waterfall. Originally listed at nearly $2 million in 2010, shifting real estate markets dropped its price to around $1.2 million, reflecting the unpredictability of even beloved celebrity properties. Yet despite its beauty, the estate lingered unsold, perhaps too intimate and personal for buyers seeking glamour tied to Hollywood scandals or infamous histories. Today, Elizabeth Montgomery's former home stands quietly unsellable, not due to notoriety, but because of its deeply personal character, a tranquil reminder of a star who lived life gracefully, away from the gossip and grandeur, preserving serenity in a world captivated by fame. Errol Flynn, perched high above Los Angeles on Mulholland Drive, once stood a mansion so entangled with Hollywood myth that even its ruins whispered scandal. This was the estate of Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling rogue of the silver screen, famed for his roles in Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. Built in the 1930s on nearly 11 acres of lush, secluded land, the estate was a Mediterranean-style dream with panoramic city views, private gardens, and winding paths that led into secrets the tabloids only hinted at. Flynn's home wasn't just luxurious, it was infamous. Behind its arched doorways and stucco walls lay mirrored ceilings, peepholes, and what many described as a red velvet pleasure room. Hollywood's elite passed through its doors, lured by Flynn's charisma and the mansion's aura of forbidden indulgence. As his personal life spiraled into alcoholism, lawsuits, and controversy, the house became less of a sanctuary and more of a gilded prison of excess. After Flynn's death in 1959, the estate became a real estate ghost, abandoned, vandalized, and too infamous to restore. Even in L.A. quote, "S red-hot property market, no buyer could shake its shadowy past." Developers eventually tore it down in the late 1980s, but locals still claim the hillside feels haunted. There was no for sale sign that could cleanse the legacy Flynn left behind. His estate, like the man himself, remains a cautionary tale of charm turned ruin, fame turned curse, and a Hollywood dream that decayed behind locked gates and velvet drapes. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country below and don't go anywhere. The chilling mystery behind Marilyn Monroe's final home is coming up. And trust us, you won't want to miss it. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's Brentwood estate once symbolized Hollywood wealth and power. Located at 426 North Bristol Avenue, the 10-room colonial revival mansion featured polished floors, white-on-white interiors, and manicured gardens. It looked perfect, but behind the beauty was a cold, controlled atmosphere. Crawford, the Oscar-winning star of Mildred Pierce and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, ran the house with strict rules. Her children later said it felt more like a museum than a home. After her death in 1977, strange stories began to spread. Cold spots, strange noises, and an eerie feeling filled the home. Christina Crawford, her adopted daughter, claimed the house was haunted and filled with dark memories. Her memoir, Mommy Dearest, painted the mansion as a place of fear, not luxury. Even after renovations, the house remained difficult to sell. Its reputation was too strong. Eventually, the property was torn down in the early 2000s, replaced with a modern home. But the legend lived on. Locals still whisper about it, how something never felt right behind those gates. This wasn't just a house, it was a time capsule of fame, fear, and Hollywood secrets. Robert Conrad. Robert Conrad, the fearless star of the Wild Wild West, may have thrived in front of the camera, but in private, he disappeared into silence. His Malibu home was the picture of success, perched above the ocean with sunlit decks, a sleek pool, and volleyball courts. It sold for $5.1 million in 2020, but soon found itself back on the market, sitting quiet and untouched. A beachside paradise, yet somehow no takers. But it's Conrad's Bear Valley estate that truly tells the story of a man who walked away from fame. Spread across 100 acres in a town of less than 200 people, the property was designed for isolation. 8 bedrooms, rustic pine interiors, a snowmobile garage, and no TV, no phone, no radio, just wind, trees, and solitude. He built it as a retreat, calling it Where the Noise Stops. Today, that silence remains. The property has struggled to sell for years. Modern buyers want smart homes, not frozen time capsules. But Conrad didn't care for luxury trends. He built a fortress of peace. Both homes now sit in eerie stillness, one by the sea, one in the mountains. Not decayed, but deserted. A Hollywood legend's legacy, abandoned in quiet defiance. Dare. Bob Hope. For over 70 years, Bob Hope's TCA Lake estate stood as a private kingdom hidden within Los Angeles. Purchased in 1939, the 5-acre property featured a 15,000 square foot English-style mansion, a mix of old-world charm and Hollywood ease. With 6 bedrooms, private golf course, guest houses, and a lavish pool, it wasn't just a home. It was a power center, where Hope and his wife Dolores raised their children and hosted charity galas filled with stars in full red carpet fashion. Inside, the home exuded Golden Age glamour, but outside, the estate offered true privacy, rolling lawns, manicured gardens, and quiet paths far removed from Hollywood's frenzy. Hope's golf course was legendary, a place where presidents, comedians, and moguls escaped the spotlight for friendly rounds and private deals. But after Dolores' death in 2011, the magic faded. In 2013, the estate was sold. Developers quickly moved in. The iconic 5 acres were carved into parcels, the gardens and fairways erased, replaced by generic new builds. Only the main mansion remained, preserved but stripped of its legacy. Today, what once embodied an era of grace, humor, and Hollywood royalty is just another address. The Hope estate is gone, but its ghost still lingers in the land. Walt Disney. Hidden in the leafy streets of Los Feliz stands a home unlike any other, a storybook mansion built by Walt Disney himself. From 1932 to 1950, this whimsical estate was the heart of Disney's early triumphs, where he lived with his family while creating Snow White, Pinocchio, and the foundations of his empire. But today, it's a forgotten landmark, an architectural fairy tale many pass without even noticing. Designed by architect Frank Crowhurst, the house is a dream frozen in brick and timber. With its steep pitched roofs, neo-Gothic turrets, stained glass windows, and carved woodwork, it looks like it was plucked straight from one of Disney's animated worlds. Inside, murals and fantasy motifs made the home feel like a living storybook. Built in just 10 weeks for $50,000, it was a personal project born of vision and timing during the Great Depression. Yet despite its charm, the mansion faded from public memory after the Disneys moved to Holmby Hills. It now sits quietly, almost too magical for the modern market. Whispers of its past still echo, but no one has stepped in to restore its former glory. It's a classic tale of wonder lost in the shadows of Hollywood gossip, a dream house now too rare, too strange, and too sacred for the world that followed. James Garner. In Brentwood, tucked behind discreet hedges, stands a mid-century modern masterpiece, once owned by James Garner, star of The Rockford Files and Maverick. Designed by Buff and Hensman, the 300-square-foot home embodied Garner's quiet grace. Open layouts, natural light, and seamless indoor-outdoor living. Unlike the excess flaunted in most celebrity interviews, Garner's lifestyle was rooted in simplicity and peace. For nearly 50 years, this was his sanctuary, where he raised his family and avoided Hollywood's noise. Off-market, the home sold for $10 million in 2020, but its true value lies in its soul. Garner also built a 400-acre ranch in Santa Ynez, a modernist estate crafted by Hugh Newell Jacobson. Floor-to-ceiling glass, minimalist pavilions, and rolling vineyards captured his essence, refined yet grounded. It wasn't a stage for fame, it was a place to breathe. Though neither property fell into disrepair, both now feel hauntingly still, too personal for resale hype, too serene for the spotlight. They weren't just homes. They were extensions of a man who lived without pretense. In an era where fame is loud and fleeting, Garner's homes whisper something rare, elegance with restraint, and in that silence the legend endures, untouched, unbought, and unforgettable. Elizabeth Taylor. In the hills of Bel Air once stood a palace fit for a queen, Elizabeth Taylor's Mediterranean Revival estate. With ivy-covered walls, marble fountains, and gardens that spilled down sunlit terraces, the home was a cinematic dream. Inside, rooms glowed with French antiques, gold-framed portraits, and hidden safes rumored to store the actress's priceless jewels. This wasn't just a house, it was the kingdom of Cleopatra herself. During the 1950s through the 1980s, it bore witness to Taylor's headline-making romances. Her marriages to Eddie Fisher and Richard Burton unraveled within these very walls. Love, betrayal, and reconciliation all played out behind its heavy wooden doors, while the paparazzi circled outside. The home hosted Hollywood royalty, champagne-fueled parties, and teary departures, an epicenter of drama as grand as any movie set. But time caught up with the estate. After Taylor moved on, it fell out of favor. The once buzzing mansion faded from the tabloids, sold quietly, and lost to the next generation of buyers more interested in modern minimalism than old Hollywood lore. Though it no longer carries her name, the property still holds an air of vanished splendor. A haunting asterisk time capsule, asterisk of glamour and scandal, too bold for some, too sacred for others to change. Marilyn Monroe. In early 1962, Marilyn Monroe finally bought a home of her own, a modest Spanish-style house in Brentwood, Los Angeles. She paid $75,000 for the 1929 property, a serene, sun-drenched retreat, far removed from the chaos of her public life. With vaulted ceilings, red-tiled roofing, and a peaceful garden surrounding a kidney-shaped pool, the home symbolized a new beginning. Monroe filled it with hand-picked Mexican furniture and colorful tiles, curating a space that reflected her longing for authenticity and calm. But just 6 months later, Monroe was found dead in the master bedroom, an apparent barbiturate overdose that shocked the world and added fuel to the flames of endless Hollywood scandals. The quiet sanctuary she had so lovingly created became a crime scene, and the house has never truly escaped its shadow. Decades passed, owners came and went. Some respected the home's character, others altered it. In 2023, the property faced demolition, but public outcry surged. Fans, historians, and preservationists fought to save the last place Monroe called home. Their voices were heard. Now protected, the house stands not just as a relic of old Hollywood, but as a haunting symbol of a woman who searched for peace and never found it. Walter Brennan. Tucked away in the outskirts of Oxnard, California, Walter Brennan's old ranch quietly decays, a forgotten patch of land once owned by one of Hollywood's most decorated character actors. Brennan, who won 3 Academy Awards and appeared in over 230 films like The Westerner and Come and Get It, chose a life far from the studios and red carpets. His estate wasn't a mansion in the Beverly Hills tradition, but a sprawling western ranch with wide porches, open fields, and a strong sense of isolation, mirroring the gritty, self-reliant roles that made him famous. Despite a net worth of $10 million at his death in 1974, Brennan rejected Hollywood's flash. Today, his property lingers in legal limbo, rumored to be unmarketable, not because of price, but because of legacy. His name, once golden, is now tangled in controversy over his extreme political views and inflammatory comments. No buyer wants the baggage. The ranch, possibly still intact, sits like a stubborn scar on the landscape, a relic of a man revered on screen, resented off it, and in a strange twist of Hollywood gossip, the very land where Brennan escaped the spotlight has become the final unmoving spotlight of his story, a place no one dares to claim. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen, the legendary king of cool from films like Bullet and The Great Escape once retreated to an exclusive beachfront home in Malibu, a striking reflection of his rebellious, refined persona. Perched along private Broad Beach Road, this 300-square-foot haven offered sweeping ocean vistas, expansive sun decks, and direct access to the sand, a perfect hideaway from Hollywood's constant spotlight. Inside, McQueen's home blended casual sophistication with relaxed luxury, showcasing sleek interiors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a spa-style master suite. Though carefully modernized over time, the house retained traces of its famous occupants' effortlessly cool style, making it a quiet landmark among celebrity properties. Yet despite its storied past and current value near $12 million, the home has proven surprisingly difficult to sell. Perhaps buyers today are more intrigued by Hollywood scandals or notorious gossip, leaving even an iconic estate linked to cinema's ultimate rebel quietly overlooked. McQueen's former Malibu retreat remains a subtle tribute to a star whose presence transformed simple spaces into lasting icons, an unsold treasure that preserves the aura of Hollywood's most enigmatic hero. still too elusive for new owners to fully claim. J. Silverhills. J. Silverhills, who made history portraying Tonto on The Lone Ranger, lived a life quietly resisting Hollywood stereotypes. Despite earning fame and solid wages, around $1,500 per episode, he never pursued lavish Hollywood mansions or flashy estates. Instead, Silverhills chose a modest suburban home, a peaceful sanctuary where family life flourished away from the camera's glare. His residence mirrored his own quiet dignity, functional, family-oriented, free from extravagance. Inside these walls, he raised his children and mentored aspiring Native American actors, tirelessly advocating against racial barriers in the entertainment industry. Yet after his passing in 1980, this unpretentious house attracted no eager buyers, overshadowed by Hollywood gossip, favoring scandal over humble virtue. With little fanfare, the home quietly slipped out of family ownership, becoming nearly forgotten. Today, Silverhills' former house remains unsold, not because of haunting rumors or controversy, but precisely for its simplicity, a quiet legacy seemingly unsuited for Hollywood's fascination with excess. This humble property stands as a hidden tribute to a man whose greatest achievement wasn't luxury, but integrity. A home that quietly echoes his unwavering fight for dignity, representation, and genuine progress within Hollywood's golden age. Clint Walker. Clint Walker, the broad-shouldered icon of Cheyenne, didn't chase the spotlight, he rode away from it. While other stars flaunted hillside mansions and red carpet glamour, Walker chose a different path. A rustic ranch-style home tucked deep among towering pines on acres of forested land that whispered solitude. The house was no Hollywood showcase. It was warm, worn, and deeply personal. Wooden beams framed the ceilings, stone fireplaces crackled in winter, and wide windows pulled the forest right into the living room. A wraparound porch offered long, silent mornings with a coffee in hand, just Walker and the wild. Inside, his small office overflowed with memories, vintage Cheyenne posters, black and white cast photos, and stacks of fan letters still unopened. He passed away in 2018, but the house remains, a quiet refuge frozen in time. It was never listed with flashy photos or bidding wars. It's said to still sit quietly, untouched by modern renovation, wrapped in trees and the hum of wind through branches. How do you feel about Clint Walker abandoning fame for total isolation in the woods? Comment 1 if you think it was foolish, 5 if you believe it was powerful and brave. Bob Crane. Bob Crane was once the face of 1960s television charm, captivating millions as the witty Colonel Hogan in Hogan's Heroes. But fame fades fast in Hollywood, and by the late 1970s, Crane was living in quiet obscurity, far from the red carpets and cameras that once defined him. His final residence wasn't a mansion in Beverly Hills, but a modest apartment at Winfield Place in Scottsdale, Arizona, where he was starring in a small stage play called Beginner's Luck. The apartment itself was ordinary, plain furnishings, beige carpets, a nondescript exterior. But on June 29, 1978, it became the scene of one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries. Crane was found bludgeoned to death in his bed. The murder remains unsolved to this day, tangled in theories, scandals, and unanswered questions that still feed Hollywood gossip circles. Winfield Place has since been transformed into an upscale condominium complex, its palm-lined courtyards and clean white walls masking the gruesome history within. Units sell, families move in. But for those who know the story, the shadow still lingers, and not every Hollywood downfall ends in scandalized tabloids or courtroom trials. Some are hidden in plain sight, behind a quiet door in a polished building that no one wants to talk about, but no one can truly forget. Richard Boone. Richard Boone wasn't your typical Hollywood star, and neither was his home. Best known as the complex, pistol-clad paladin in Have Gun Will Travel, Boone built his legacy on grit, intellect, and mystery. In the 1960s, he owned a rugged hilltop estate in Los Angeles, worlds away from the flash of premieres and studio parties. Part ranch, part fortress, the home reflected Boone himself, private, unconventional, and fiercely independent. Inside, it was said to be filled with Western memorabilia, political books and relics from his many travels, more like a scholar's den than a celebrity mansion. But as Boone grew disillusioned with Hollywood, He fled to Hawaii in the 1970s, leaving behind the life and the property he no longer wanted. The estate, once a haven of creativity and quiet rebellion, slowly crumbled in silence. Boone's departure sparked whispers, rumors of behind-the-scenes clashes, artistic stubbornness, and estrangement from the industry elite. While the home never officially went up for sale in the spotlight, it decayed unnoticed, lost among newer builds and forgotten by the next generation. In an era addicted to celebrity interviews and curated fame, Boone's abandoned mansion is a reminder of a man who chose obscurity over applause and left a piece of Hollywood history to vanish with him. Audrey Hepburn. Tucked quietly in the hills of Los Angeles, Audrey Hepburn's mid-century modern home once embodied the elegance she carried both on and off screen. Built in the 1950s, the estate was a masterclass in California modernism, with soft Mediterranean touches that reflected Audrey's European roots. It was no palace, but a sanctuary of light, air, and quiet sophistication. The open floor plan flowed into the outdoors, where a serene garden and modest pool offered Hepburn a private escape from the flashbulbs of Breakfast at Tiffany's fame. Inside, the home told a different story than most celebrity estates: minimalist decor, soft neutrals, hand-picked art, no clutter, no chaos, just calm. Here she retreated after long days on set, away from the demands of red carpet fashion and studio contracts. Unlike the scandal-ridden estates of her peers, Audrey's house was a space for stillness, and yet its very simplicity may be what doomed it in the modern real estate market. Long since sold and passed between hands, the home now rests in obscurity, overlooked by developers chasing bigger, flashier builds. But if walls could whisper, this one would speak in grace. A rare time capsule of old Hollywood serenity, abandoned not by neglect, but by changing tastes. Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball, the legendary redhead who brought America to tears of laughter on *I Love Lucy*, lived a life full of triumph and shadows. In 1954, at the height of her fame, she and Desi Arnaz bought a sprawling estate in Beverly Hills. The home was classic Hollywood: manicured gardens, sweeping staircases, grand chandeliers, and a buzz of famous guests like Jack Benny and Jimmy Stewart. After their divorce in 1960, Lucille stayed. It was her sanctuary until her passing in 1989. But the house didn't go quiet. Rumors began swirling: unexplained cold drafts, windows shattering for no reason, angry voices in the attic, and furniture that moved on its own. Close friends claimed to see her ghost walking the halls, still wearing the grace and grit that made her a star. Over the years, its glamorous facade has become hard to sell. No one wants a haunted mansion, no matter how beautiful. Even her first LA home, a small two-bedroom craftsman bungalow on North Ogden Drive, holds mystery. In 1933, Lucy shared it with her brother, later moving her entire family in. Today, it's worth over $1.75 million, but it carries a forgotten controversy. In 1936, Ball registered to vote as a communist, a fact that exploded during the 1953 HUAC investigations. Though she was cleared, the label stuck for years, nearly destroying her career. Two homes, one legend, and a legacy wrapped in ghost stories, Cold War whispers, and Hollywood history. These are not just properties, they're time capsules, and perhaps that's why no one dares to truly claim them. Do you believe Lucille Ball's mansion is truly haunted, or just another Hollywood myth? Comment yes if you think the ghost stories are real, or no if it's all just gossip. Let's see where everyone stands. Dan Blocker. Dan Blocker, beloved as the warm-hearted Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza, was more than just a gentle TV cowboy. He was a smart investor in real estate. At the peak of his fame, he owned multiple properties, including a grand 5,000 square foot mansion in Los Angeles' prestigious Hancock Park. With sweeping staircases, high ceilings, and classic mid-century design, the estate reflected Blocker's success and the golden glow of Hollywood's heyday. But after his sudden death in 1972, the house changed hands, and eventually personalities. Years later, the mansion was purchased by Rob Zombie, the heavy metal rocker turned horror director. The warm, family-friendly image once attached to the home vanished, replaced with gothic decor, dark themes, and rumors of unsettling energy. That contrast from Blocker's wholesome Western legacy to Zombie's macabre world made the house infamous among fans and locals alike. Some say the mansion carries a split soul, half cowboy warmth, half haunted rock opera. Though still standing, the home's strange transformation makes it one of Hollywood's most fascinating real estate tales, a time capsule not just of changing owners, but of changing eras. Pernell Roberts. Pernell Roberts made his mark during Hollywood's golden age with his unforgettable role as Adam Cartwright on Bonanza and later as the principal doctor John McIntyre on Trapper John Maryland. At the peak of his fame, he walked away not just from a hit show but from the Hollywood machine itself. While others chased the spotlight, Roberts sought something simpler, more meaningful. In 2003, he purchased a quiet home in Northridge, California, a peaceful suburb in the San Fernando Valley, known more for tree-lined streets than tabloid drama. Modest yet elegant, the home likely featured classic California architecture. Sun-drenched rooms, open floor plans, a serene garden, and maybe a pool tucked behind ivy-covered fences. It wasn't a mansion, it was a retreat. Here Roberts lived until his death in 2010, far from the red carpet, but close to his values. A fierce advocate for civil rights, he marched in Selma and condemned Hollywood's racist casting practices even at the cost of his career. Today, the house sits in quiet obscurity. No film crews, no eager buyers, just the fading trace of a man who chose truth over fame. In a world obsessed with Hollywood scandals, Roberts' final home is a monument to quiet defiance and dignity that can't be bought. Irene Ryan. Irene Ryan made America laugh as Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies, a role that earned her 2 Emmy nominations and cemented her as one of TV's most beloved comedic icons. Long before that, she had a successful career in vaudeville, radio, and Broadway, even performing alongside Bob Hope during What 2 tours. But despite her fame, Irene lived far from the spotlight. Her real home was modest, nothing like the lavish mansion seen on the show. After her death in 1973, the house was left behind. No buyers came, no renovations followed, just silence. Over the years, the home became a relic. Urban explorers who ventured inside found furniture still in place, personal photos on the walls, and even Irene's old scripts and letters gathering dust. It was as if time had stopped. Some said it felt like she'd stepped out for groceries and never returned. Whispers of a haunted presence added to the house's eerie appeal. Strange chills, flickering lights, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. But no one stayed long enough to prove anything. Her legacy lives on through the Irene Ryan Foundation, which supports young actors. But her home remains, a quiet monument to a star who made the world laugh and then disappeared. Jane Mansfield. In 1957, Jane Mansfield stunned Hollywood, not with a film role, but with a house. At just 24, the rising star of The Girl Can't Help It and Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter bought a Mediterranean mansion in Beverly Hills and drenched it in bold pink inside and out. It wasn't just a home, it was a declaration. The Pink Palace became a shrine to glamour, excess, and the larger-than-life image Mansfield embodied. With 40 rooms saturated in blush tones, pink fur-trimmed bathtubs, and a heart-shaped swimming pool etched with "I love you, Janie," the estate was both spectacle and sanctuary. It was here she lived with Mr. Universe husband Mickey Hargitay, hosting elite parties while raising their children in a house that screamed stardom. But after Mansfield's tragic death in 1967, the Pink Palace became more ghost story than fairy tale. Whispers of curses, secret affairs, and untold truths swirled like old perfume, a magnet for Hollywood gossip. When singer Engelbert Humperdinck later took ownership, he preserved the mansion's charm, but the aura of Mansfield remained. Eventually, the iconic home was demolished. All that's left now is legend. A pink dream turned ghost, shimmering with the memory of a star who burned too brightly. Linda Ronstadt has never been one to feed the gossip machine. For years, she let the music do the talking. But in sharing these stories now, it's not about revenge, it's about truth. Her legacy was built not just on her incredible voice, but on surviving the egos, the betrayals, and the ruthless machinery of the music industry. These revelations aren't an attempt to tear others down. They're about lifting the veil, offering insight into the strength it took to endure it all. Linda Ronstadt's journey proves that resilience can be just as powerful as any note she ever sang, and her melody of independence will keep echoing long after the final encore. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in the songs we sing, but in the silence we choose to break. Which of these stories shocked you the most? And do you think Linda was right to stay silent all these years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.